If you have ever looked at a kombucha recipe and thought, wow, that's a lot of sugar, you're not alone. One of the biggest concerns new kombucha brewers have is whether all of that sugar ends up in the final drink. Some people even try to skip the sugar altogether or replace it with an alternative right from the start. But the truth is, without sugar, there would be no kombucha. Today, I'm explaining exactly why sugar is essential, what happens to it during fermentation, and what every beginner needs to know before brewing their next batch. Let's get started. Welcome back to episode 3 of my Beginner Kombucha series. In episode 1, we talked about how kombucha works. And in episode 2, we talked about choosing the right tea. Today, we're tackling one of the most misunderstood ingredients in kombucha, sugar. Let's start with the most important thing every beginner should understand. Sugar isn't added primarily to kombucha for you. It's actually for the SCOBY. Think of sugar as fuel. Your SCOBY is made up of beneficial bacteria and yeast. Those microorganisms need energy to grow, reproduce, and ferment your tea. So when you add sugar to sweet tea, you're creating food for the fermentation process. Without that fuel source, the SCOBY cannot function properly. This is why sugar is considered a required ingredient in traditional kombucha brewing. Tea provides nutrients and sugar provides energy. Together, they create the environment your SCOBY needs to thrive. Now, let's answer the question that everyone really wants to know. What happens to all of that sugar? During fermentation, the yeast begins consuming the sugar. As the yeast breaks down the sugar, it creates compounds that the bacteria can use. The bacteria continues to turn these compounds into acids and other substances that gives kombucha its signature flavor. But in simple terms, the sugar is transformed during the fermentation process. A younger kombucha is usually sweeter because more sugar remains. A longer fermentation typically creates a more tart and less sweet kombucha because more sugar has been processed. This is also why tasting your kombucha during the fermentation process is so important. The flavor changes over time and your ideal flavor may be completely different from mine. This is where many beginners get into trouble. People often want to cut the sugar in half right away. While this sounds like a good idea, reducing the sugar too much could stress your SCOBY and affect the fermentation process. So if you're new to brewing, I recommend following a proven recipe first. Learn how successful fermentation looks and tastes. Then, after you have brewed several healthy batches, you can begin experimenting carefully if you like. But remember, the goal isn't to eliminate sugar. The goal is to create a healthy fermentation process that produces great kombucha. Another common question is whether you can replace the sugar with stevia, honey, monk fruit, or other sweeteners. The short answer is traditional kombucha recipes are designed around regular sugar. Some alternative sweeteners don't provide the same food source that your SCOBY expects. Others can produce inconsistent fermentation results. So if you're just getting started, keep things simple. Use plain white sugar and focus on learning the process. Then, once you are comfortable and consistently successful, you can research alternative fermentation methods and experiment from there. But for beginners, simplicity is your friend. When I first started brewing kombucha, I had the same concern many beginners have. But once I understood that the sugar is feeding the SCOBY and fueling the fermentation process, it made a lot more sense. So today, I focus less on the amount of sugar going into the brew and more on creating a healthy fermentation process. The better your fermentation, the more transformation occurs. Ultimately, the best kombucha is the one that tastes good to you and supports a healthy brewing routine. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Before watching this video, what did you believe about sugar and kombucha? Did anything surprise you? Leave a comment below and let's continue the conversation. Give it a thumbs up because we're building a beginner kombucha resource here on this channel. And next week, we're moving into one of my favorite topics, summer flavors. I'm sharing some of my beginner-friendly kombucha flavor combinations, including strawberry ginger, pineapple, and more. If you missed episode 1 or episode 2, make sure you watch those next so you can build a strong kombucha foundation. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next brew. Until next time, may all your kombucha be fizzy and delicious.